Well, here we go. The first trial in the final case. My loves. So, Apollo Justice is on here. So is Dual Destinies. And so is Spirit of Justice. So we have access to all of them. And actually, look at all those cases. They say in Dual Destinies to do the special case at the end as the third case. Something to know once we get there. It's going to be a while.
Okay.
But we're still on Apollo Justice, and so let's get on with it. Now, I want to ask you, though, beforehand, what are you most intrigued about so far in this case?
Well, we have more than one case going on. I mean, really, because we don't know why the Yellow Magician's being all weird with his stuff. We also don't know why the dead guy knows about previous cases that we've worked. And it's also kind of weird that, like, there's no poison in his coffee. There's poison on his lips. He died from poisoning, but it's not in either cups of coffee. But it's in the picture frame that has no picture in it.
So for you, you're like, there's a lot of things that aren't adding up right now.
Yeah.
And when you say the magician in yellow, Valent, is acting weird, you mean his reaction to seeing that letter?
Yeah, to seeing that Trucy had a letter what was supposed to be for her dad. And then I just found out that, like, her dad is missing and I guess declared dead, which originally I just assumed that he was, like, dead and she knew he was dead.
Okay. So you're thinking maybe he's not dead?
Yeah, because he was declared missing and it was so many years per that law for them to, like, inherit the magic tricks or whatever, and it seems like Valiant needs Trucy's dad out of the way to be the sole inheritor. So it's convenient for him to not have Trucy's dad around. And I'm also very highly suspicious of the woman that was in the flyer because she kind of looks an awful lot like the mirror.
Okay.
Okay. I could be wrong, because sometimes with these animations I'm like, is that a boy or is that a girl? Because sometimes they're flamboyant and they have, like, big eyelashes or something, and I'm like, is it a girl in disguise? So I don't know what's going on. There's stuff going on. I have questions.
Indeed. Well, I gotta say, if any of that's wrong, I'm not judging you. If
Okay.
any of that's right, I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
I just am very curious where your head's at right now, so I can kind of gauge, like,
Always
okay.
all over the place.
Yeah, but, like, since I've already played this game, right? And again, like, I promise you, for the most part, the trial-to-trial stuff and evidence, I don't remember the specifics of. It's more just, oh, I know, like, the end. But as somebody who hasn't played it like you, I'm actually very curious where your headspace is. So I'm glad you told me all that. I've compounded it. You gave me some stuff that I'm thinking about. But we can go over that once we finish the case.
I'm all over the place.
Hey, it's totally cool. That means that's got you hooked. So, good morning. So, you're Vera, right? I'm Trucy. Trucy Wright. That's right with a W, but not right, right? We're on your side. You can tell us anything, please. Good morning. She speaks. Oh, not bad, not bad. But I think you do better with a little smile, you know? You're so pretty, you need to sell yourself, you know? Trucy, let's take it easy for starters. Thank you for taking my case. Okay, well, that's a start, I guess. There she goes with the nail polish again. That's great, really. It's so cultured. Want to try? Oh, really? Ah, girls. The victim, Drew Misham, was a forger. So somebody said that they think his name is Drew Me Sham because he's a forger, so it's a sham. But it's like Drew Me. That's a little more of a stretch than what I'm used to as a pun, but I guess it kind of works. And a stolen painting was found in his studio. A life of crime, really. And maybe one that led to his death. Well, we will now begin the trial of Vera Misham. Is the judge okay? His voice is all raspy, and he's looking around all nervous-like. The repercussions of today's trial will most likely be felt for a long time, and may indeed alter our legal system forever. Today is a test of the jurist system, and the first step toward a new order in our courts. Daddy's secret mission. The jurors will function like a jury. It is hoped their inclusion will help the courts to better reflect the people's will. Why aren't there any jurists in the courtroom? 3 closed-circuit cameras watch this courtroom at all times. The jurists have access to everything that transpires. Jurists, Judge Well, and Judge Cool. Now, see here, Prosecutor Gavin. I was going to say that. My apologies, Judge. Jurist, judge today's trial coolly if you would be so kind. The jurists are unbound by the letter of the law. They don't affect the trial with evidence, but by their feelings. And we're about to find out just what effect they're going to have. Very well, Prosecutor Gavin, the details of the case, if you would. The victim is the painter Drew Misham. He was killed in his own studio. His coffee was poisoned. By whom, you ask? By none other than the defendant, Vera Misham. There wasn't any poison in the coffee. Achtung! Someone has been doing their homework. Indeed, poison was not present in the coffee, but on the mug itself. The mug? Residue was found on the autopsy report describes the manner of our victim's death. The court accepts this as evidence. Atroquinine poisoning, 9 to 9:30 p.m. According to this report, the victim's death was caused by atroquinine poisoning, a chemical compound that does not occur naturally. Lethal dosage is a mere 0.002 milligrams. A touch of atroquinine in the body is the touch of the Reaper's scythe. Scythe. Why did I say scythe?
This is a weird word.
It is, yes. In English, a wonderful language, but also a weird one. Very well, Prosecutor Gavin, you may present your witness. I have for you today a simple man for a simple case. A man who witnessed the murder in its entirety. That journalist, no doubt.
He's not simple. He's a tweaked out clown.
Indeed. Let's see, the witness will state name and occupation. Alright. Well, for starters, my name's Spark Brushel. My job is a lone observer of the world. In other words, a freelance journalist, right? If you don't mind, I'd like to state something here for the record. Yes, Mr. Brushel. I dislike conclusions, specifically the aspect of jumping to conclusions. Preconceptions make park sandbox of endless desert waste, end quote. But you are a journalist. You said so yourself yesterday. Well, that's true, yes. But you must understand I stand before you today, a man with a dream. I'm offering you my testimony in exchange for exclusive rights to the story. Scoop turns Mr. Brushel into that Mr. Brushel, end quote. Let's hear your testimony then, shall we? A simple case, eh, Gavin? For me, the jury is still out. His smile cracks me up. I visited the studio around 9 o'clock that night to do the interview. The first outsider to enter the atelier. Journalistic history made, end quote. His daughter brought us coffee right after we started. And you know what happened next. Star falls, end quote. No one else entered the room besides her the whole time. That does sound like a simple case. Unless you were the one who poisoned him. Whoa, what are you saying, Judge? Ahem. Need I remind you the cameras are rolling today? I felt the need to be a bit dramatic. You didn't do it, did you? Me do a thing like that? Come on, that's like newsmaker making the news, end quote. Or even contemporary witch hunt, end quote. I know, wild accusations rock courtroom, end quote. Ah ha ha ha. Rock indeed. Prosecutor Gavin sure looks like he's having fun. I'm so happy for him. Very well, Mr. Justice. Your cross-examination, please. "9 o'clock at night. Isn't it a little late for an interview? If the great painter Drew Mishams has come at 9, believe you me, I go at 9. The first, and as it turned out, last interview with such a prolific painter. Right. Can you tell us what it was like when you arrived?" "You were the first reporter in Drew's studio. Posterity will look back on that night as a turning point in journalistic history. A basically insignificant step for all mankind, but a giant step for that Brushel guy, end quote. If no one on the outside ever had access to the studio, then it would serve to reason that the deed was done by an insider, by which he means Vera did it. So how did that epoch-making interview go?" "His daughter brought us coffee right after we started." "Would you mind being a little more specific?" "Ooh-wee, let me tell you, I enjoy a cuppa. In fact, it all began when I was in 3rd grade. No, wait, 4th grade. That's not what I meant. I believe I know what Air Forehead is driving at. This coffee the victim was served. Did anyone other than the defendant touch it?" "Alright, that's what I was going to say, really." "Well now, if you've got a question to ask, you'd best straight up say it. Ask it. That's what I tell all the new recruits, several times if necessary. Write for a grade schooler. That's my motto. Which isn't to say I can only write grade school level stuff, mind you." "Who touched the coffee?" "Dunno. And what happened next?" "And you know what happened next. Star falls," end quote. An old telegram. "Send money over." "Zowie, you don't know? That's like a journalism code word. An important personage passes away, a star falls, get it? But there's no gravity in space, is there? I wouldn't think stars could fall, really. Does this matter? Ooh boy, this is good stuff. Good stuff. How about star breaks? Nah, lacks punch. I know, star dies. Nah, lacks imagination. Of course you could go with Drew dies, straight to the point. I like it. I think we need to hear about something a little more substantial. Anyone jump out to you, babe?
Let's ask about his coffee.
Alright. So you drank the coffee that Vera served you too? Of course. When someone serves you coffee, you drink it. That's what my old boss always used to say. Never did get what he meant by it, though. But you're still alive, which is to say you didn't die. Of course not. No point falling before you're a star, end quote. That's not exactly what I was getting at. What were you getting at, then? You know the poison was on the rim, not in the coffee. Oh, yes. There were 2 cups on the tray she brought, and one of the cups had Drew's signature painted on the side. No chance the guest would take that one by mistake, I guess. Well, Mr. Justice, was that testimony important? Not sure if this one is.
No.
So Brushel drank the coffee too. Doesn't look like this is going to lead to much. Very well, please continue with the testimony. Okay, press him on this and then we'll go back to the 4th one. Can you say that for sure? For sure? Sure, I'm sure. Drew's studio isn't a big place, kiddo. I'd know it if someone else had come in. What if they had been hiding in there from before? Even if someone had been hiding in the studio, they hardly could have poisoned that mug without anyone noticing. You think I, Spark Brushel, would miss something as obvious as that? No way. He sure makes it sound exciting. I guess that's his job. There's only one moment we need to focus on, really. The moment when Drew Mission died. Exactly. There has to be something there. Okay.
The moment of death?
Let's try it. About when Mr. Mission passed away. Oh boy, what a scene that was. He puts his coffee mug down with a crash, right? Yes, and then? Then the cold finger of death touches his spine. Life's flame sputters and fails. So cold was that touch, he could do naught but tremble uncontrollably. Actually, Life's flame is a little tired. Life's river froze over. Yes, that's a go. I think he's starting his article already. Could you describe that a little more simply? Well, as you can imagine, I was pretty surprised. He hit the floor, as they say. Artist seizure's final performance, end quote. Atroquinine paralyzes the central nervous system. The body arches back like a bow, the limbs tremble, the throat burns. That's quite enough of that. Some of us want to be able to sleep tonight. Oh yeah? Well, I want details, lots of juicy details. For that, you can listen to our last year's hit single, Atroquinine, My Love, by the Gabiners, available at all major music outlets. The point here is that the victim died of atroquinine poisoning. Well, Mr. Justice, how did you find that testimony? Not sure if there... Was there something in there? That...
I mean, you just said that he slammed the coffee down, but then he started to have a seizure?
Let me see... Let's see.
If it paralyzes you, how could you put the coffee just back down like normal?
I don't know. Let's just say it's very important, see what he says. As an account of the moment of the victim's death, I'd say it's very important. Please add it to the testimony. Very well, the court requests the witness add this account to his testimony. Those spasms, that was definitely death by poison.
Preston, how would you know that?
Yeah. You're not the investigator. You said it was definitely death by poison. How can you be so sure? Hey, look, I'm a journalist. I've seen a lot of things. And I've had more than my share of experiences with so-called poisonings. Man eats fishy fish, goes bye-bye, and quote, food poisoning doesn't count. Should I get him to talk about something else?
Stars coffee?
Let's try it out. You say Mr. Misham had the coffee too, but did you actually see him drink the coffee? Of course. He who sees it wins, but he who says it wins bigger, end quote. I live in a man sees dog, eat dog, and writes about it world. Yet? I guess I can't say I saw him drink it, really. He had one so-called sip, if that. Man puts lips to mug, drinks, end quote. That poison is quite virulent, I hear. My stomach did a so-called somersault. Since I gulped down that coffee without so much of a second glance at it. Wait, maybe something's there, some kind of so-called trick. Anyone want to venture a guess for the record? Does this guy have a pause button? Well, Mr. Justice, did you find the testimony valuable? Let's see. The victim drank his coffee, then immediately fell over? Oh, yes. You can go to press with that one. Your Honor, this is a vital piece of information. Please add it to the testimony. Very well, the witness will add this to his testimony. Vital, right. He had one sip, if that. The next moment, he was on the floor. So he either took a sip or he didn't, and then fell over. Oh yes, indubitably. Just like that, wham bam. So Mr. Misham drank the coffee and fell over immediately. No, I think Brushell's telling the truth, too. Should I get him to talk about something else?
Haven't we asked him about all those things?
Yeah. I don't know if... Let's see what happens if we ask him to add Brushell's coffee to the to the list. I say that's important. Okay, what does he say? I drank the coffee too, but I'm not dead yet. You're sure you drank the coffee? Oh yes, quite. I gulped it down, felt that sweet scorch in my throat. But you say the victim took one sip and fell over. And you still kept drinking? Of course. Drink your coffee when it's hot, never when it's not. That's what my old boss used to always say. Never really knew what he meant by it. I don't know if there was anything there. So I don't think this necessarily means...
We missed something?
We missed something. We just have to kind of figure out which one is going to add something really important. So, I'm asking about the moment of death again, because they said at the end, after we were done with the fifth one, that they got to talk about the death. So let me just look at that again. Sure makes it sound exciting. The moment when Drew Mission died. Yeah, so... Oh, whoops. That's not what I meant to do. Let's look at the evidence again. Those spasms. Oh, God! I keep trying to press R1 for corp record. Let's see. So it says traces of the slow-acting deadly poison. So if it's slow-acting, he shouldn't have just had one sip. We should ask him about his coffee again. And then show the mug. So let's see the Star's coffee. Because he said he took one sip, if that. Then one sip, if that, the next moment he was on the floor. Yeah, slow acting. You know what I have a problem with? A particular property of the poison used, atroquinine. Oh, Prosecutor Gavin was quite clear about the poison. A lethal dosage of 0.002 milligrams paralyzes the central nervous system. If you drank that, even you, Mr. Justice, would be reduced to a quivering pile. Why are you using me as an example? Unfortunately, we weren't told everything. There was a vital omission in Prosecutor Gavin's information. An omission? Atroquinine is as virulent as he says, but death doesn't come upon ingestion, not immediately. That's because atroquinine is slow-acting. Slow-acting? What? According to one forensic scientist, it's one of the most virulent poisons, but its absorption into the body is astonishingly slow. It takes at least 15 minutes from the time of ingestion for adverse effects to show. If we suppose that the moment Mr. Misham sipped the coffee was when he sealed his fate, then he would still have had time left to enjoy his last cup of joe. Order? What's the meaning of this? If what the defense says is correct, why, that contradicts the entire testimony we've just heard. Well, Mr. Brushel, anything to say on the record? Slow-acting. S-L-O-W-A-C-T. It was virulent, all right. Even then, it had already begun digging its claws into the journalist. He's working on a scoop. It's Brushel, yeah? Herr Brushel, let's take a trip back down memory lane. Huh? Did the victim really die the instant he took a sip? Think it over, this is vital. You know what I think? I think that was a not-so-subliminal suggestion, end quote. I admit it does cause a problem if he died when you say he died. I would be forced to say... How do you pronounce that?
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen?
Auf Wiedersehen.
What does that mean?
Goodbye.
To my simple case. And you would be forced to say farewell to your article. Come again? You can't write a story based on conjecture, can you? And as the case drags on, other reporters will pick up the scent. And you'll be forced to kiss your exclusive scoop goodbye. Scoop? Look, wait. Just wait a second. Just 1 second. We're waiting. Out with it. I think I just recalled a so-called important detail. A revival of recollection, end quote. A story survival, end quote. Attorney utterly confused, end quote. Actually, I love Apollo. Actually, I did notice something when I visited the studio. I'd heard of poison that takes its sweet time, see? But not what I've been saying for the last few minutes, apparently. Mr. Brushel, are you saying you noticed something that explains what happened? You bet I am. The antidote for a poisonous contradiction, end quote, you might say. Or, I still have no idea what you're talking about, end quote, I might say. I figured it out, but only after an in-depth interview. See, thanks to my journalism skills, I know who poisoned that coffee. Order. As far as I can tell, the witness is standing by his testimony that Mr. Misham died the instant after he drank. Of course I'm standing by my testimony, and my dream of exclusive rights to this story. I suppose it was too much to hope for. What was? Of course he wouldn't choose a simple case. Not him. Him? Phoenix Wright, who else? Achtung, Herr Brushel. Report for us if you would. What is it that you noticed? This court is a critical trial of the jurist system. I'm afraid no room for doubt is permissible. You will testify to the court about what you noticed. When I arrived at the studio, Mr. Misham was at his desk. He seemed to be writing a letter, but he quickly sealed the envelope. I thought nothing of it at the time, of course. Now that I think about it, what if he was writing a suicide note? A suicide note. Yes, he had this look on his face. Man's face inscrutable as a quadratic equation, end quote. Suicide? Poor Mr. Misham. But that means Vera's innocent. Would someone commit suicide in the middle of an interview? Oh. Very well, you may begin your cross-examination. Was there anyone at the studio other than Mr. Misham? Well, his daughter Vera, of course. Was anyone besides Mr. Misham and Vera present? Not a single one. Not a cat, not a rat. The person who didn't belong to that studio there was you, wasn't it, Mr. Brushel? I know what you're doing. I know your game. Attorney uses classic Ramsden phenomenon ploy, end quote. If you intend to suggest that this reporter is a suspect, I'm sure you also intend to present evidence supporting that assertion, correct? In the meantime, let's move along, shall we? So he put the letter away when he saw you. Early reporter gets worm, end quote. That's my secret. I'm not sure I follow. It's the night of the interview. I arrive 15 minutes ahead of schedule. The handle turns, the door opens, and I barge in. Are you sure that's okay to do? I mean, isn't that unlawful entry, really? Mr. Misham sure seemed to think so. You should have seen him. He crammed his letter into that yellow envelope as fast as he could. I know a secret when I spot one, and that was one. It does seem significant. Well, Mr. Justice? I wonder. It does have the ring of something important. The defense finds this testimony vital, Your Honor. Very well, please add it to the testimony, then. Hey, why not? My account comes free of charge. The envelope in it...
It was a yellow envelope. I heard it was left at the crime scene. How would you know that?
I don't know, but if it's the envelope we found, that wasn't yellow.
It's red.
Yeah. Yeah.
Objection!
As it just so happens, there was a single letter in a desk drawer at the scene. In a red envelope. What? Prosecutor Gavin. Yes? Was a yellow envelope found at the scene of the crime? Unfortunately, no. But Air Forehead. It's easy to mistake the color of an envelope. I guess. But not this envelope. You see, it was postmarked already 7 years ago. Well, Mr. Brushel? I can explain that. Drew, right? He wanted to get that letter in an envelope pronto. Get it out of sight of my beady eyes, right? So you grabbed the nearest envelope and crammed away. And what about the whole red and yellow envelope contradiction, chump? Well, Mr. Justice, have you anything to say to the witness's claim? That night, the victim put a letter he had been writing in a red envelope.
We didn't find one. And we looked in the mailbox, didn't we?
Right. I'd say it's impossible. That's impossible. Ah, I like your expression. It's so full of confidence. It's simple, really. As it just so happens, the defense team investigated the contents of this envelope, with the assistance of a forensic scientist. What? Note that this letter is addressed to Drew Misham. Oh? Why would he address a letter to himself? Let alone send a suicide note to himself. I've been scooped! Order, order, order. Mr. Brushel, can you explain this to the court? Oh my. How could I have forgotten? I suppose this happens to the best of us. Reporter gets old, forgets lots, end quote. Speaking of which, how old is he? 36? I just became older than him. He does not look 36. I'm still waiting for an explanation, Mr. Brushel. Well, that's the thing, see? After he put his letter in that envelope, Mr. Misham sat there searching his desk drawer for something. His desk drawer? Yes, a stamp, a so-called postage stamp, end quote. A stamp? Whatever for? Well, to mail his letter, what else? And then, why, yes, I think I saw him put it in his letterbox. Yes, it was a yellow envelope, and he put it in that box. Well, apparently this... Oh, whoops. This yellow letter has nothing to do with the case. Oh, how I wish it did. Just think, if that were a suicide note, what a story. Star writes suicide note in front of reporter. Falls, end quote. Ahem, as I was saying, that has nothing to do with this case. That said, yes, Your Honor, it makes me wonder about the contents of that red envelope. $100,000 is quite a good deal of money. So this was from 7 years ago, yeah? So, am I finished? Am I finished here? I was thinking of, going home to start writing. I hate to state what should be pretty obvious to anyone, but when you catch the scent of a story, you make that, rather unique face. Ah, come on! Attorney has active imagination, little else, end quote. Even I noticed something, and my eyes aren't what they used to be. I'm starting to understand what all this perceiving stuff is about. Judge has active imagination, end quote. Please continue with your testimony. Tell us about the scent of a story. Hey, I'm the one asking the questions here, usually.
Why is he so weird?
Because he's in an Ace Attorney game? Actually, it took a bit of work to get a thumbs up on the interview. Reporter leverages story, gets his interview, end quote. The story concerned a certain case from 7 years ago. That red envelope probably had something to do with it. Say what you will, but Drew's talent was without compare. So you threatened to go to press with this story. That's how you got your interview, blackmail. Well, yes. I mean, no. It wasn't exactly black. I mean, I'm not Irk. Something wrong, Mr. Brushel? Look. This is my story, my tidbit. Journalist info is livelihood, end quote. I see. While you have me chatting away in here, what's going on out there? What if someone Wally Wordsworth or Sally Scooper gets wind of my story? They could be going to press while I'm going to waste. The court feels your pain, Mr. Brushel. Mr. Justice, let's pick up the pace. A certain case 7 years ago. Wait, 7 years ago?
That's Phoenix's case, right?
Is it?
Maybe.
Hey! The story gets interview unquote. Story concerned a certain case from 7 years ago. Let's see. A certain case 7 years ago. Tell us, what case?
He's sweating.
Let me state one thing, Mr. Attorney. You can quote me on this. I can't talk about that case. Why not? It's about journalistic pride and staunchness and credibility and connections. Journalists reveal sources only over his dead body, end quote. So what'll it be? Gonna strangle me? Dead men don't tell tales, Mr. Attorney. He sounds pretty determined not to talk. Our chances of breaking his will aren't looking good. Oh, I think we can break his will.
You sure it's that statement?
No, I'm not. But truth be told, I haven't seen anything anywhere, so maybe it's not. It's just that he seemed determined not to talk. That red envelope probably had something to do with it. On the one hand, we have your story, and on the other, this letter. What makes you think the two are related? Oh, I was just saying it's possible. College reporters...
He switched his, or brushes his teeth? I don't know.
He's brushing his glasses! Hey, I say a lot of things. You're going to pick all of them apart? Be my guest. All of them? No, just the incredibly suspicious ones. I see. Anything else to add about Mr. Misham? I wonder if it's this one, maybe. Say true, but Jew's talent was without compare? I mean, I don't see why it would, but...
Towards the end, he starts beating his head with it instead of brushing.
Well, that's the thing, he hasn't even brushed with it yet. Like, when I perceive, anyway. Are we sure it's not this one?
He does, like...
Yeah, like... Even if it's a little slower, let's kind of just take a good look at each body part. There's nothing there. You know, I haven't even checked his forearm yet. Actually, hold on a sec. I don't think I saw one single thing that was off. And let me look at his eyes. Exactly what sort of story was this? Oh, little one, like I said, nothing more, nothing less, nothing in between, end quote. I might have suggested I had a lead on this particular story, but I didn't threaten or cajole or nothing, honest. So a suggestion was enough to get an interview? Mr. Mishram must have really wanted to keep it under wraps. The victim Jew Mishram had an aversion to reporters. Boy, I guess. Not even my considerable charms did much for him. Till I finally got my thumbs up, that is. Maybe you can elaborate on that a bit for us.
back to that other statement about nothing to compare.
Oh.
Well, he was a forger.
Yeah. A very talented forger. I mean, I can check this again, because perceived came up, so there's something that evidence we can't use for, but our perception will help for. We just gotta figure out what. Trying to see if like his ear twitches, or...
I haven't seen him do anything.
I'm just waiting for the judge to go, "Why do you keep staring at him like that?" Take a look at his eyebrows. Whoa!
What was that?
Oh, he's sweating.
Okay.
Gotcha!
Looking at stuff we don't normally look at. Sweat butts, Mr. Brushel? Eric, yeah, well, a man can't help his glands, you know. It's more than that. When Mr. Misham's talent was mentioned, you suddenly began to sweat buckets. Ah! You're hiding something about his talent. What? That's ridiculous. Evidence time. Let's show where Mr. Misham's true talent lay. It just so happens I have evidence showing the talent mentioned in that letter. Probably the forgeries. How do we show his forgeries exactly?
The one that the peach floating down the river.
True. Well, this is the original.
Not the original, but you have another one.
This one. I can't help but wonder what the court is supposed to conclude from this evidence. Oh? Other than that you've made a horrible mistake? Man burns bridge, forgets to cross first, end quote. Huh.
So then is it the real one?
Maybe.
Or that he stole it?
Let me see.
I would think the forgery one would be the more...
Yeah. Because that was the one he was doing. Well, this one was hidden.
Okay.
Yeah. That was the hidden one. This painting was found in Mr. Misham's studio. There are two problems with this painting. The first is it wasn't painted by Mr. Misham. The second is that there was another painting in the studio, which looked exactly like this one, except it was only half done. Then we have a letter discussing a payment of $100,000, which suggests a certain business operation. The business of making forgeries. Aoog! That is all, Your Honor. Everyone, please, everyone. Can we keep this private, please? This is my story, my scoop. Forgery, that's a serious crime. Drew Misham is known as an artist these days, but there were rumors he dabbled in another kind of art until a few years back. Another art meaning forgery? Drew Misham was talented, all right. Talented at making precise, detailed fakes. A fact that certain criminal elements were quick to discover. Criminal elements? What? You can't seriously be talking about... Exactly. I'm talking about forging evidence. The rumors started circulating 7 years ago. 7 years ago? So are we to understand that this letter, this payment of $100,000 was for... Exactly. Forged evidence nets tidy profit, end quote. Order, order, order! Why, it's like our victim was living a double life. Aha, this is my chance. So the victim had ties to the criminal world, right? He could have had plenty of enemies we know nothing about. This is my first time hearing of this criminal world. We certainly found no criminal connections when we conducted our investigation. So how do you explain all this money? You have to admit there's a possibility of some illegal activity here. But there's no proof tying this letter to our case. Our case was and remained simple from the beginning. Only the defendant could have poisoned that mug that night. And you, of course. Hey, the only thing I poison is my pen when I'm writing reviews. Mr. Brusher, your testimony to this point has been quite unreliable. It doesn't speak well of your reporting acumen. What are you talking about? My journalism is rock solid. Journalism so solid you could stand an elephant on it, end quote. In any case, let's hear a summarized recap of your testimony. If we can ascertain the situation in that studio from the recap, this trial is over. Apollo, what's he talking about? The cross-examination showed Mr. Brushel didn't have reason or means to poison him. As long as there's no other suspects, then the killer had to be Vera, that's what. This next testimony is our last chance. Mr. Brushel, your testimony, please. The only other person in the studio that night was the defendant. It was Vera who poured the coffee. She's admitted as much herself. The only thing that touched Drew's lips during the interview was that mug. And nothing left that studio after he died. Nothing. Clearly, the only one who could have poisoned him was his daughter. A nice testimony. Clear, succinct, and without room for doubt. I have an idea, but...
I do too.
What?
He's poisoned before he comes, or right when he gets there, and the only thing that left could have been out of the letterbox.
I was thinking about the letterbox, because he did say there was a yellow envelope that he put in there, but it's empty. So I'm tempted to just present that immediately to the fourth thing he said. Oh, shucks, you really think so? And I believe this clarifies the situation that night. Very well, Mr. Justice, you may begin your final cross-examination. Right. I still have one trump card left to play. Yeah. This is the only link between the studio and the outside world. The letterbox. What did Mr. Brushel just tell us? When he entered the studio on the night of the murder, the victim had just finished writing a letter. Yeah, I said that, and yeah, it was true. Furthermore, you went on to tell us that he put the letter in a yellow envelope and put it in the letterbox. Ah, but that very same letterbox was empty. In other words, that night, the yellow envelope disappeared. Ah yes, intriguing. So an envelope has disappeared from the scene of the crime. Of course, this changes nothing. Huh? He has a point, Mr. Justice. What we're trying to figure out here is how the poison got into Mr. Misham. Is it really important that this envelope the witness says he saw disappeared? Well, if it did disappear, then something did leave the studio that night. That seems very important to me. Very well then, the witness will add this to his testimony. You got it. I still think this fails to change anything, Air Forehead. I wouldn't be so sure. A letter disappeared from the crime scene that night. This is exactly the opening I've been looking for. is he to say? I don't think it matters. Nothing could be more serious than an envelope disappearing from that studio. And you were hiding that fact from us. Yes, well, actually, I don't argue the possibility that a letter disappeared from that studio. But Forehead, isn't there a much more serious question before us? Right, how Mr. Misham was poisoned, I know. But Mr. Brussels' testimony has changed, which means the facts of the case have too. And what he's told us means something entirely different now, I'm starting to think. Let's keep thinking, Apollo. You say clearly as though it were obvious. But this claim that the defendant poisoned the victim is merely conjecture. Ah, yes, well, you see, in my business, it's all about making the most ridiculous things sound right. A bad habit, I know. Yes, well, or actually, I guess this is more a case of ridiculous journalist sounds wrong, end quote. The court is forced to agree with you. Please refrain from wild conjecture. Understood loud and clear. If only I could believe that. What do you think, Apollo? Everything he's saying seems so not flawed. Well, that's kind of what you want from a testimony, really. I need to keep my eye on what matters. How and why was Misham killed? Vera poured the coffee, that's not going to change. But if that coffee didn't kill him, I need to find what did and prove it. Let's see what we got.
So, what about the little picture frame?
So I was thinking about that. There's no picture if he mailed it and that the picture was poisoned. Objection! But it doesn't look like that's it. The witness's statement is clearly faulty, Your Honor. I'm sorry, but I can see nothing faulty. Unfortunately, I will have to penalize you, Mr. Justice. Ugh, I must be on the wrong track.
That's not true. Because maybe there was a picture or a stamp in there that touched his lips and then he touched the cup.
Yeah, because it wasn't in the coffee. We know that. Let's press him on this. You sure about that? Well, to be really, really precise, I was basically gobbling mint candies the whole time. One of those candies might have been poisoned. Yet, at the time of the autopsy, no fresh fragrance of mint filled the room. And no mint residue was found. It was a long shot anyway. Don't tell me you're still trying to prove this? You think the victim ate, drank, or otherwise ingested something other than the coffee? Yeah, well, Mr. Justice, if you have some proof, the possibility is there, I can feel it. Just maybe not prove it, not yet. And possibility isn't going to cut it, not now. Mr. Misham ingested that poison via a route other than that coffee.
Yeah, I can prove it because we have the picture frame.
Proof is possible. Here goes nothing. You do understand what we need, yeah? Proof, Forehead, not possibilities. Of course. And Prosecutor Gavin, I hope you understand. I'm ready to give you that proof. What did you say? I have proof of the disappearing envelope. I saw him writing a letter, I did. Which was picked up by the mailman, I assumed. Of course, which means that envelope had a stamp on it. Stamp? Ah. As we all know, stamps come with dried glue on the back. In order to use the glue, you have to wet it. By licking the stamp. Okay, so we needed him to add that to his testimony first. Fair. No one worth talking to actually licks stamps in this day and age. Even if you wanted to talk to him, you couldn't. He's dead after all. Okay, so we licked the stamp, but wait. How does that explain the atroquinine on the rim of the coffee mug? If he licked the back of a poison stamp, the poison would get on his tongue, yes? What would then happen if he put the coffee mug to his mouth, huh? Those traces on the mug weren't the killer's doing, it was the other way around. What? The coffee mug didn't poison Mr. Misham. Mr. Misham poisoned the coffee mug himself. Order, order, order? But that doesn't... does it? Recall, if you would, atroquinine is a slow-acting poison, yes? The poison entered his body when he put the stamp on that envelope, but his time wasn't up until the very moment he touched his lip to that cup of joe. You have something to add, Mr. Brushel? Uh-oh, his nose is picking up another scent. As I believe I mentioned earlier. Well, that's the thing. See, after he put his letter in the envelope, Mr. Misham sat there searching his desk drawer for something. Yes, a stamp, a so-called postage stamp, end quote. But you know, I don't seem to remember him ever finding one. Maybe he just run out? Incidentally, we searched the desk drawer at the scene of the crime. There were no stamps, not a single one. That does pose a problem. How will you prove that the stamp was coated with poison? Actually, I'm glad no other stamps were found. It makes proving the stamp he used was poison possible. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Good show, good show. You can't even prove there was a stamp at the scene in the first place. Well, let's hear what the defense has to say anyway. Where's your evidence that proves the existence of this poisoned stamp?
The little frame.
Well, that certainly is a cute little frame, and by little I mean really little. It was on the victim's desk, Your Honor. Quite empty, as you can see for yourself. I noticed that too during my inspection, so what? Ah, apparently you weren't as observant as you should have been. You see, when you saw this frame, it was missing something quite important. Missing something? Yes, a pale bluish stain on the inside of the frame. Atroquinine residue. What? Why wasn't I told about this? The frame is only 2 inches square. The face of the frame is even smaller. Maybe an inch wide at most. You aren't saying. Oh, but I am. Tell me, what fits in such a small frame? A commemorative stamp, perhaps? Order, order, order. The poison stamp was in this frame? Impossible. Prosecutor Gavin, why would he put something like that on his desk? Don't tell me he had it there so he could commit suicide if the mood struck. You know, can I say something? I had a thought, see. What, Mr. Brushel? And please stop jittering around like that. The victim was a forger, right? There was a lot of money. There's a lot of money in that line of work. Forger forges friends, makes enemies too, end quote. So the poison stamp might have been a murder weapon aimed at him. Oh, rich. That's rich. Leave the ridiculous flights of fancy to the Gaviner's song lyrics, please. Finally, something we agree on. The stamp was a murder weapon? Nonsense. Murder is a simple business. Who would go to such lengths? No one. Oh, I disagree. Come again? Recall, if you would, the victim's reclusive lifestyle. Drew Misham hid from the world, he avoided meetings. His only contact with the outside world was the mail. The mail. Now, if you wanted to kill someone you couldn't meet, but you knew red letters, a stamp would be the perfect weapon. Ridiculous, where's your proof? I want proof. Show us evidence that this poison stamp was sent to him as a murder weapon. I might not have evidence, per se, but things are finally starting to come together. What is it, Apollo? Your fists are trembling. I think I know what happened. I don't believe it, but I can see it. I think I know how Mr. Misham was killed. Well, fill us in, Mr. Justice. A certain piece of evidence points to the truth, Your Honor. I can tell you how someone with the intent to kill sent Mr. Misham the stamp of death.
email?
I wonder if it's this? The enclosed envelope with the enclosed stamp.
Within 3 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't this the envelope, the one from 7 years ago? Think about the text of that letter again. There were 2 pages in the envelope. This is page 1. And this is page 2. I want to draw your attention to one phrase in particular. Send in the enclosed envelope with the enclosed stamp within 3 days. The enclosed stamp, Your Honor. Ah. In other words, if I have this straight, the stamp, poison on the stamp, lick, lick, gasp, end quote. Now, what if he had done strictly as the letter asked? Or exactly as the letter asked. Sorry, the cat was in the way. He would sign the document, put it in the envelope, and put the stamp on it, right? Then he would put it in his letterbox. 15 minutes wouldn't have elapsed between affixing the stamp and mailing the letter. But the clock started ticking, and when the time came, it drew his last breath, and the murder weapon would be taken away from the scene. Quite conveniently, thanks to the postal system. Such a splendid imagination you have, Herr Forehead. Let me confirm one thing with you, if I might. So, this poisoned stamp was inside this envelope from 7 years ago, yeah? Is that what you'd like us to believe, really? Well, it is a little bit of a stretch, but there's a possibility. Yes, a very small possibility. How small, I wonder? A poison stamp in this envelope? A stamp that then became the murder weapon? How do you intend to prove this seeming coincidence? Well, it was 7 years ago, and we don't even know who sent that letter. And your answer is silence, I see. Very well, I move to... It's not nice to pick on the Fraulein, Clavier. Ah, Emma. Well, like my Christoph Gavin impression, did I sound like him? Don't quit your day job. Don't you have a crime scene to be looking after, Fraulein Detective? Someone had to come dig you out of all out of the mess you're making of the case. Mess? You know, none of this would happen if you just trusted in science a little more. You can find out if that stamp was in that envelope easy. Care to explain yourself, Fraulein Detective? Glare at me all you want, but science is on my side. It's all in the residue, right? That's right. The poison detection spray. Produce the red envelope at once. You can open it on the authority of the court. Well, would you look at that? No mistaking it. That's atroquinine residue. I don't believe it. A murder weapon from the past. Now, 7 years later, it bears its fangs at last. Absolutely outrageous. Tell me why. Why didn't this murder take place 7 years ago? Well, there's one possibility. Maybe Mr. Isham figured it out. Figured what out? He realized that the person who sent the letter wanted him dead, so he sent his reply with a different stamp, and put his decisive evidence in a frame. You're still here? Can I make a statement here on the record? I, Spark Ragertooth Brushel, claim the scoop as mine. Drew Misham killed in cold blood. By sender of 7-year-old letter, end quote. Oh no, maybe something more succinct. Star falls after 7-year delay, end quote. Order, order, order. I see no room for further argument here, though I admit this is all coming as quite a shock. To think that the murder weapon reached his mouth 7 years. After 7 years. Stamp is taken straight to afterlife, end quote. Uh-oh, I think the witness is a bad influence on our judge. I see no need for further debate on this matter. The sender of that letter 7 years ago could hardly have been our defendant. Apollo! I think we just won. Very well, this court finds the defendant. Is this the bright future of our legal system? Prosecutor Gavin? A ticket to the afterlife from 7 years ago? Tickets for Gaviner shows are invalid after 2 weeks. But it doesn't make sense any other way. It boggles my mind that so many people haven't noticed this. There's a fatal contradiction in Air Forehead's claim. A contradiction? A poison stamp was placed in this envelope 7 years ago, whereupon it was framed until now. If that's the case, then why would Drew Misham have done what he did? Realize it was poisoned. Therein lies the rub. 7 years ago, the forger Drew Misham sensed the trap and put the stamp in a frame. I do not debate this, but this begs the question. Why 7 years later did he use that stamp on the night of the murder? Ah. Surely you don't mean to suggest that Mr. Misham simply forgot? He put the murder weapon in a frame on his desk for 7 years and forgot? You expect us to believe he sprang the trap on himself? What? While I admit this is all quite shocking myself, it does seem highly unlikely that he would fall afoul of a trap that had been sitting on his desk for 7 years. Apollo, I don't think we're winning anymore. I'm glad to see we're all back in the real world now. Welcome back to reality. We've been waiting for you. Okay, then how do you explain the poison stamp that was in this envelope? The poison stamp? Where exactly is this poison stamp again? Have you brought it to court for us? I see no proof that such a thing ever existed. What about the atrocanine residue, huh? Oh, I agree, there does seem to be atrocanine residue. But Air Forehead, it's certainly no stamp. Yeah, but even if your precious poison stamp did exist, Drew Misham never would have used it. That is all. Irk. I believe we've come to a conclusion again. Apollo, were we wrong the whole time? I can't believe it. The poison traces match up, it can't be coincidence. I'd like to bring some closure to this issue sometime this year. Mr. Justice. Yes, Your Honor. Let's review the facts and see where we stand. 7 years ago, Drew Misham received a red envelope. There were traces of the poison atroquinine on the document inside that envelope. A similar trace was also found at the crime scene, on this tiny picture frame. The defense has indicated the possibility of a yellow envelope, an envelope that left the scene of the crime with the poison stamp on it. Yes, but even if this envelope contained a poison stamp, and Drew Misham, knowing this, put it in a frame, he never would have used that stamp. I'm afraid you're right, which means there is a fatal flaw in the defense's case. I haven't been on the wrong track this whole time, I'm sure of it. The traces of atroquinine, the envelope, the frame, and Drew Misham's mysterious death. They're all connected somehow. Well, Mr. Justice, do you have a conclusion for us? The defense stands by its case, Your Honor. We see that the logical outcome of the evidence makes no sense, which means that one of our clues must be a fake. Ah, fake clue? Fascinating. If we find this fake, your wild fantasies will prove quite reasonable, yeah? The fake clue that's thrown us off the poison's trail is none other than...
Drew Misham.
Yes, somehow that seems right, even though I don't understand how.
It was his get out of jail card. He knew that the guy came 15 minutes early. He kept that as like a suicide pill. I think.
The victim was a fake clue. I'm afraid I don't understand. I'll explain. We have an envelope, a frame, and a mug linked by poison. That all makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the victim himself. Congratulations, you've completely lost me. So the fake evidence is none other than the master of fake himself, the forger? It makes a good story, I'll give you that. The fake clue. Fakes. Forgeries. Ah. I know that face. That's the I just had an idea face. I don't know if I'm right, but I'm going with it anyway. What if our forger is the fake? Come again? 7 years ago, our forger sniffed the trap and stepped aside. 7 years passed. Now the forger stumbles into that very same trap and dies. Why? That's what I want to know. Because the forger who was killed was a fake. Here we are again. The victim was a fake. One forger smelt the trap, one forger fell into the trap. That's 2 forgers, and one of them was a fake. Order, order, order? So you are telling us that June Misham, the victim, was a fake. Well, if he was the fake, who was the real forger? You'd better not be claiming there was some kind of switcheroo. I'm afraid you're going to have to back up your story. Mr. Justice, show us just who the real June Misham was. If June Misham wasn't the real forger, there's only one other person it could have been.
Vera?
Vera. Understood, Your Honor. Forger June Misham was himself a forgery. The real Okay, I think I get what he's saying then. It's not that there's a body double, it's that Vera is the brains. There can only be one explanation, really. The real identity of the forger known as June Misham is none other than his only daughter, Vera Misham. Order, order, order. Mr. Justice, this is going out on a limb even for you. I kinda agree. I mean, Vera, a forger? Let's consider it before you write it off entirely. If you look at the paintings in the studio, one fact becomes quite clear. Forgery had been taking place in that studio for quite some time. The forger wasn't caught in that trap 7 years ago. This can only mean that the one who was caught in the trap wasn't the forger. Well, actually that does make a certain kind of sense. One more thing. Only 2 sets of fingerprints were found in the forger's studio. June Misham's and Vera Misham's. If we know that June Misham wasn't the forger, that leaves only one possibility by process of elimination. The forger was Vera Misham. Well... fascinating. Oh, he seems okay with that one.
Well, I thought maybe he had poisoned himself because he knew he was in some doo-doo.
Ah. Vera Misham. Vera Misham. You've been paying attention to the trial so far. Let's just ask her and be done with it, shall we? Who are you? Who is the forger, June Misham? Was that an expression of emotion I saw in her face? She's staring holes into Prosecutor Gavin's face. I'm used to being stared at by Fraulein's, believe me. Though they usually talk to me too. Tell us, were you the one who forged those works of art? Yes. So the forger June Misham was you? Yes, it was me. What? The court was in an uproar and it wasn't coming down. We had to break for a 10-minute recess.
Good stopping point. So I was wrong. I was going down the wrong trail.
Yes, but I mean, you know, this is the first trial day. So, you know, some of our guesses would naturally be wrong because, you know, because it's the last case, so it's not like it's over in a heartbeat. Amazing how a poisoning turns into all this.
Birthday kitty.
Yes, indeed. All right, made some good progress. I look forward to the next time we play, which will be in 5 minutes.
No.
Yeah, I know.